too many times on the border, but how do you break up with your friend? I know there's no use to confront her, but how do you say this is the end? I'm through being taken for granted. I'm the one you call when nobody's home. Being with you is just disappointment. I'm your last escape, so I've been told. Don't bring that bomber to my door again, my friend. You know that you've been crying wolf too many times. Well, this time I know it. Been there, I've done that. Those words are just sand in my head. So talk if you like, but words will be words till you bring them to life. So talk if you like, but words will be words till you bring them to life. Words will be words till
Here we are, episode 2. Episode 2. That is Talk, Talk, Talk by St. Michael featuring Anya Gold. Oh my goodness. So excited, so excited. Welcome back, Mike and Marq. It's Let's
Marq.
Up,
I'm Marq.
Hello.
Mike and Mike show. And our special guest, Marq Mervin, as we
What's up?
teased on the end of our last episode. He's got his own copy, of course.
You know I gotta have my copy. We gotta do the promo, so.
Exactly.
I got to get one.
I know, we teased it.
I want a signed one.
Okay, I got you.
Okay, cool.
I don't have a signed one.
I'm gonna just sign yours, and then I'm gonna sign another copy. Then contactless delivery, so I got y'all covered.
Oh,
Mike, take mine.
You just gotta reach over and grab it.
Reach over and grab it. All right.
go the other way.
Oh, my screen is this way. There we go. I don't have it. So this is awesome, Marq. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for the copy. I appreciate it.
No
I
problem.
offered to pay for it, but he would not let me. So
Yes.
I think that officially makes you a sponsor.
I'll pay.
Oh, okay. Make me look bad.
No.
I think that officially makes you a sponsor of our show since you gave us free swag or are giving.
All right. I'm down for that. I am so down for that.
So one day, I hope that. Excuse me, I'm drinking my water here to keep my whistle wet.
Gotta stay hydrated in these streets, man.
One day, I hope that collection of prose and poetry by Marq Mervin.
Yes.
This is wow. So I read through it very, 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 very quickly. First of all, let me tell everyone about this, or you tell us actually about this cover art, because it feels like cloth. This book is so soft. I love how soft this book is. Tell us about the cover art though, because it looks like canvas. It's not canvas, and it's a beautiful watercolor, but it's digital. Tell us about the artist and how this came to be, and then we'll talk about what's inside this book.
Cool. So with the cover art, it's a mixture of both traditional and digital work, where the watercolor in the background, that's an actual painting, but then the digital aspect was composed on top of it. So the water and the boat and all the typography, that was added afterwards. But when coming up with a theme, one of the, I guess, lifelines, or one of the things that I've been really thinking about and writing about and meditating on, is just like this understanding of what life is, and understanding like floating, or I guess sailing on this ocean of time, and all of us are in these ships. And I talk about this, I think, in the foreword, where all of us are on these ships and we meet other sailors in our journey, but then we tie our ropes to each other, and sometimes we get closer, sometimes we get farther apart, but basically we're in relationships. They're ships in relation to each other. And so still on my journey, as we all are, this boat is sailing on into the sky, and just onward and farther, and it's just really like a ode to what is the future. I hope the future turns out okay, whatever it may be. And I just hope that I figure out some additional answers to whatever questions I have. So I wanted to put all of that rambling inside of the artwork. And my friend one of my closest friends from undergrad, Larry Maxwell. He did an amazing job. I truly cannot thank him enough. I thank him every time I look at the book. So yes, that is the inspiration behind it, and I'm super happy with it.
I love the cover art. So yeah,
Thank you.
Lawrence Maxwell did a beautiful piece. I have to say, the forward. I don't know if it's in the forward or if it's just if I read it in what you sent me. To queer boys and men, look upward to the sky and remember you are still here, beloved. This lyrical journey is titled as both an affirmation of being present in one's self and faith in what the future holds. One day, I hope that. Now, I'm reading that from the back of the book, but it's also in what you sent me to kind of describe the book.
Mm-hmm.
Collection of prose and poetry that explores the interwoven experiences of Black identity, queer identity, and masculinity in an autobiographical form. Some of these pieces are heart-wrenching, and some of them are fun and lighthearted and sensual, and just they run the gamut.
It's a little mix of everything in there.
Everything. So this took you, this wasn't like you sat down for an afternoon and said, I'm going to write some poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Years, months, how long did it take you to write this?
Oh man, that's a good question. It's a interesting time lapse because I would say about a couple months to about a year or so, where I mainly write music, and also when I'm in my thoughts, I love to journal. So in this space of wanting to be creative but not knowing how to express that creativity, I was like, man, I have all these thoughts, but I don't have music to put them to, but I don't want them to go to waste. And so from there, the poems just kind of already existed, but then I needed to refine them, tweak them, develop more things. So I would say a couple months to about 6-7 months of really finalizing and hammering down which ones I really wanted to share. And I had a bunch of other stuff I wanted to talk about, but I feel like with what it is now, it felt where it needed to be. And yeah, it was a lot. and that's something that I tend to think, like when my brain is at 100 miles a minute. I always describe it where it's like a web browser with 80 tabs open, and I'm like, ooh, should I close one? Because then when I do that, 3 more pop up. So, and so with that, it's constantly like stuff is just popping in my head, and I'm like, oh, I can't write it fast enough or type it fast enough. So, I wrote quicker than I normally do, which I was happy about, but I knew I wanted to pour a lot into it because it was a lot of healing through all of that writing, a lot of transparency and being honest with myself in the hopes of living a more courageous life, and not necessarily for anyone else, but really just to be more proud of myself, and to get more in tune with myself. And through this work and then future works, I started to learn that a lot of my creativity is centered around identity. It's like, who am I in this world? And,
Right.
how do I find whatever place I belong in? So about 7-8 months, and then it culminated to all of this.
I have a couple questions. Well, first I
Go for it.
want to point out something that you said just when you were doing your intro about it, how it's ships and sailors and tied by ropes, and then the relation, and then ships. I mean, all of that just kind of resonated with me. I think that's so interesting. Then I just lost my
Take time.
and that kind of brings me to kind of what another thing that I was going to ask, separate from the question that just like went away, was when you work on stuff that you have so many things that you're thinking of, like you're talking about all the tabs being open. I can identify with that, and I'm sure Mike can too. But I'm like shiny squirrel, so I forget things, and
Yes, same.
Really, because what I find so impressive about what you've talked about and what you've put together is being able to write all of that stuff that you put together and cohesively. And because when I think of things that I want to write down or journal or, you know, make sense of, it just kind of goes out of my head. And I feel like I lose that opportunity that you're talking about of that healing. And and you know that, you know, when you're talking about the healing, can I ask real quick, when you did this, the stories on the poems and everything, when you said you got healing from it, I mean, were you able to let some of whatever good or bad go?
Ooh.
Does it stick with you? I mean, how does that, I mean, because I mean, that's what some people would, I mean, even my therapist would say, you know, right? You can somehow let it go.
Of journaling sometimes, you know, to let it go, but sometimes it's not. So yeah, that's a great question.
Right.
Yeah, this is an excellent question. There were some things that there were a few things I was able to let go of, but there were a few things, or I would say many more things, that I was able to come to a resolution with, but I haven't been able to depart from. And I say that because I break down the work into 3 sections of love, lamentation, and liberation. And through that, this kind of this answered some questions for me where I'm like, well, what do I think about love, and how do I navigate what love means? But then with sadness, how do I lament openly and transparent? Like, how do I be transparent with that? And then liberation, I think liberation is the biggest part that I've resolved, or I've reached some form of a resolution with, but I can't let go of, because as soon as I feel like liberated from one thing, something else pops up that says, oh, okay, great, you've made it through level 1. Now it's time to get to level 2, where you have to unlock some stuff. And I think that going back to what you mentioned about writing these thoughts, a lot of the times when it comes to creating work, whether it's written work, visual work, anything of that nature, I have to do it kind of quick, because when I have the fire for it or the passion for it, then it just kind of pours out. I don't think about refining it. I just think, get it out on paper, get it out on my phone. There is plenty of nights, even now, that I'll just wake up in the middle of the night and type something down because it's on my mind that much.
Right.
And if I don't have someone to talk about it with, then I sit with those thoughts and I mull over those thoughts. And I think one of the gifts and curses of being, you know, so caught in your thoughts is you'll figure stuff out, but you sit with it for so long that it can end up, you know, creating like this roadblock for other stuff. And so I'm like, man, I hate feeling stuck. So I have to just sit down, power through it. And a lot of my writing is messy at first. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's rough. It's just all over the place. But I like that because it's organic. It's raw, you know, and I think it's the best description of myself in that space where nothing makes sense. But when I give it time to kind of settle, sit, marinate with everything else, then I can start to go back, refine it, tweak it, you know, clean it up, and then make it presentable and cohesive where it does make sense. Because at first, if you read the early stuff, it's like, I don't know what's happening. But then, you know, once you go through that like polish phase, oh, I see how point A goes to point B, because before A was going to Z and back to C. Don't make sense. So yeah, like, and my apologies on my camera. I don't know why it keeps going in and out. So first I wanted to apologize for that. But to answer your question, I think that I hope that answered it. But yeah, it's just a bunch of rambling that somehow formed into things that make sense, which I'm thankful for.
Yeah.
So speaking of rough sketches that come out into beautiful presentations. You did all of the artwork on the inside of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my favorite, I think. And it dives into one of the poems, and it's a very short piece. And the piece is untitled.
Oh, yeah.
With permission, may I?
Oh, go for it.
Okay. The three most common insults I've received: nigger, faggot, and fat. Imagine being
all three.
And the picture, the illustration is imagine being all three.
Mm-hmm.
It's a powerful poem. It's short. It's like 12 words.
I'm glad you counted because I didn't.
It's maybe, I'm guessing. I'm glancing, saying it's 12 words. I think it's,
let me go count my own stuff. I don't know my word count.
But and it's right next to another one that's very powerful, Size Matters.
Oh, yeah.
It's the photo or the illustration, when I flip to it, because it's about what, maybe 10 pages before the poem. In and of itself, you look at that picture, and my first thought is like Frankenstein. My first thought is, cobbled together pieces. The Japanese art of filling in the cracks with gold, to fix something. It's obviously someone is broken or something is broken and you're fixing it. And I thought, okay, that's a very powerful piece. And then, you flip, you go through the pages, you're reading, and then you get to Untitled and you go, oh, wait, I just saw that somewhere. And flip back and you go, oh, imagine.
Yeah.
It's like you go back and forth and you go, that works with that. The intersectionality is a theme throughout the book.
Mm-hmm.
Continually. But the intersectionality of not just those three insults that you've received throughout your life, but three, I don't want to say facts because they are insults, but they're like any insult that we receive, insults are based in fact.
Right.
And that makes them hurt all the more, right?
Right.
So those three things about you, which are positives when the wording is changed to describe what the insult describes.
Mm-hmm.
You are Black, you are gay, you are a big guy.
Mm-hmm.
Said differently, they are three insults from the person saying them.
Right.
Those three intersections, those three things meet, and imagine being all three in this broken man who is not the man I see before me, who's not the man I know. You're not broken, but I know we all feel broken.
Ciao.
I know.
We on camera right now. So.
Right.
Girl, it's a heavy question. So I'm asking for a somewhat lighter response to a heavy question. How do you reconcile that? It's probably going back to Mike's question, right? You've written this piece, you've journaled it, so to speak. How do you then move on from that? I mean, you've let it go a little bit by putting it on paper. Then you move on from it because you've got to put it to rest, or then how do you get up in the morning? Right. I deal with two of those three things. Mike maybe deals with one of those three things.
Oh, come on, be real. I deal with at least two.
I mean, but we each process differently, right? I mean,
right.
Here and see a fat gay guy. Some days I don't see the fat. Some days I don't see the gay. We see what we see, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some days you probably don't see the fat gay Black guy. You see, one of the three or none of the three, depending on the day and the mindset. So, I guess my question is, when you when you write that and process it, do you let it go ever, or is it always carried with you?
That one in particular, especially when it's heavier things, that stays with me because it's hard to let go of an experience that you constantly live and you're constantly reminded of. You know, like if we talk about, so I know love is one of the themes, and thinking about love and romance, dating, partnership, all that type of stuff, you know, I'll see plenty of times on all of the apps, like you'll read through the paragraphs, oh, whatever, I'm looking for this. Sorry, not in a black guy, it's just a preference. So I'm bombarded with that, you know, or if you go on certain apps, it's like, oh, well, yeah, that's great, but not really, or you get no fats, no femmes, no black guys, no Asians, all that type of stuff.
Right.
So, you know, it's something that I can't let go of. Rather, I have to figure out how to navigate through that because, you know, I just came across that on the apps, I think like, what, 2-3 days ago, you know, so it's something that I think is, it helps me figure out what my own place is in this world. And there's days where I'll see all three. Well, I can't say that I don't see all three because they all determine how I interpret things and how I process, how I create plans to say, okay, this is how I'm going to tackle this challenge today, or process this issue today. And it's interesting. I won't say that it keeps me discouraged. That's one thing I can definitely say. It won't always keep me discouraged, but it'll always stick in the back of my mind, you know. And I think it just comes with the territory of, you know, being in the LGBTQ plus community. We're already, and well, let me not speak for everybody. What I will say is that from my own personal experience, knowing that we still live in a world that isn't fully safe for us, it puts us on a different level of awareness where it's like, okay, I'm still going to love myself and be who I am, but we're still aware of, like, especially geographic location. This place, we're probably not going to want to go in here and be our full selves.
Yeah, your antennas are up in yeah.
Right. And so with that, having that antenna up, but then also me being a Black person, you know, it's like, especially in the world that we live in the States, that's always going to be a topic of discussion. And then within the LGBTQ plus community, it's very interesting when we have all of these subcategories and these subgroups that, you know, we have like, we have these groups that either celebrate men who are heavier or we're fetishized. So it's like we navigate so many different spaces, so many different, it's almost like a balance beam, but I'm carrying like 15 sticks instead of just one. And truthfully, I can't let it go because I still got to make it across that balance beam until I go to the next one.
Right.
To the next one, it is just like, you just get better at balancing.
So size matters.
Yes, that's one of my favorites.
He said, "You're bigger than I expected." I said, "Thanks." He said, "You're bigger than I expected." I said, "Thanks."
Mm-hmm. Take your time. Take your time. I'm gonna hydrate.
Where are you going with this?
Not confusion. It's
Everybody get some water.
because
Pinkies up.
Right.
I mean, it's obviously not a double entendre. It's definitely double meaning, because it's obviously the size of the man, but it's also the size of the manhood.
Right.
And so it's something that all three of us can relate to.
What's interesting is, and I think where you're going, part of what you're going is that in one way that you read it, it's celebrated, and then the other way that you read it, it's like, I didn't know, and I don't think I'm interested, from the person who's saying it.
I don't know what to do with
like, you know, it's either like you're, you know, it's good, or and then you're like, oh, cringeworthy because they're saying it
Right.
in a negative way. So that was, I mean, it's almost like when people say, you know, you say a certain sentence, and if you're missing a comma, it can mean a totally different thing. You know what I'm saying?
The Oxford comma ain't no joke.
Grandma. You know?
Yes.
One makes you a cannibal, and one means you're inviting grandma for dinner. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so it's sorry, this light is right in my eyes. I'm turning it off. So it's, yeah, it's, one is girth and one is you know, weight.
Hmm.
They're both girth, but one is
Right. Girth and different applications.
applications. I'm trying to you know. So I think all three of us can relate to that in the, on the surface level of, wow, you're bigger than I expected, because, you know, your profile picture on this dating app only showed you from here up.
Right.
And so you're bigger than I expected, and I'm not really into big guys, sorry. Or you're bigger than I expected. Wow, I'm really into bears, let's cuddle.
Right.
Or now we're at the point of the evening when we've taken our clothes off and, oh, you're bigger than I expected. I can't handle that
Hmm.
me, on me, with me, near me.
I don't have that problem if people say that to me.
Or
You better interject. He was like, well, me.
I'm not
Put an asterisk to that.
parenthetical.
And I think I've only said that to one person in my lifetime.
Or it's, you know, like you said, the guys who put on their profiles, you know, no fats, no femmes, no Asians, no blacks, whatever. No offense, it's just my preference.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, there's always those guys who say, I don't want this or I don't want that. It's discriminatory.
Right.
But there's a fine line.
The fact that they even have to write it on there is discriminatory.
Yeah.
Because that could be a part of a conversation once you get into it.
Yeah, there's a fine line between discriminatory and your preferences.
Right. And you don't have to even go into that. You could just be like, oh, it was really nice talking to you, and move on. You know what I mean? If you don't like me because I'm fat and hairy, then be like, you know, it's really cool talking to you, you know.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's
there's
no reason to put all those categories of, I mean, who's going to talk to you? I mean,
yeah, it's a very interesting thing, because size matters is one of my favorite ones. I actually use that as a part of an exhibition I did last year, and I had somebody ask me about it, like, well, what does this mean? And I like talking about it because it was intended to make people like get a little bit confused, but then think a little bit deeper, because it speaks to not only the celebratory aspects of like, oh, great, you're bigger than I expected. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. I didn't anticipate that. And that can also toe the line of genuine attraction to being fetishized, especially you see on the apps, and it's like the whole BBC Mandingo thing is like, all right. So that in itself steps into sexual violence, but that's a different topic. Then the other one, or the follow-up, thanks with a question mark, it's like it's being pointed out that, you know, despite the whole, oh, we'll exchange pictures and let me just go through my vetting process to make sure that, okay, are you sure you're into big guys? Are you sure you're cool with this? Then we meet up, is like, oh, you bigger than I thought you were. And I'm like, well, I sent photos, and you know, like, you knew that from jump. So it was to really tackle those intersected experiences of where I think that when it comes to men of size, or men who don't fit the stereotypical sense of attractive, of beauty, of sexy, you know, ripped and lean and all that type of stuff, and hyper mask and all of that, that's something I feel we all like, especially guys who don't fit within that space. We navigate like, well, are we attractive? Is our self-worth, like, are we not worthy of love? Are we not worthy of, you know, intimacy? Are we not worthy of these things because we don't fit into these categories? And then people are so vocal about loving these categories and putting them on a pedestal. It's like, well, that's an unattainable goal for me.
Right.
So what is out there for me, and that's why that's one of my favorites, and really just speaking throughout a lot more of my work now, speaking to the experience that I feel when it comes to queer men. I don't think that, or maybe I haven't been in these spaces enough where we have deeper conversations beyond like, oh, this guy's hot, I want to get with this person, but like, how's your heart doing? Have you felt some type of like, where's the community aspect of, okay, let's learn, from our history on to, the people we should be celebrating, taking care of the youth, learning from our elders, seeing examples of queer love that is aged. That way we have something to look forward to. These are all themes, that have helped influence this work, that piece in particular, and really a lot of the things that I'm doing now.
That's
Well,
interesting. Go ahead.
Nope. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it's interesting that you were talking about how things have aged, because with AIDS, taking out so many people.
Oh no, I meant age, AGE.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just saying that because just I'll say queer community in general, people older than us, many of them died, and
Right.
so that a lot of those mentors to look towards or to talk to, listen to, and see. I mean, there are still people, of course, but I mean, when I see people, and we're in a unique era of gay marriage only being legal for so many years, and people have relationships for so long. Like, I see a couple of people that have had anniversaries, and they talk about how they've been together, 20 plus years, 30 something years, but they've been married 5.
Right.
And that is just like beautiful. But on the other side of it, it's like a little heartbreaking, because here we are, in that part of life. And I mean, future generations won't have that issue, hopefully.
Right.
And people will be able to say, I've been married for, all these years. Did I just pay off into the weeds here? Do you follow?
No, that's perfect.
I agree. I think I'm in that boat as well. Jeff and I, my husband and I, have been together for almost 25 years, but we've only been married for going on 5 years. And that's so weird that we're celebrating like 3 anniversaries, like first date, first, like how many years we've been together, and then marriage. And it's like
marriage, yeah.
Like, why?
Whereas our counterparts get to, I say counterparts, in the heterosexual community being able to marry, have,
1 anniversary.
Yeah.
Right.
And if
or 4 marriages.
Okay, yeah.
And they have people to look up to as well, where it's like, we can talk to, elder straight couples, but they don't get the nuances of being queer men in a relationship. Like, that's every relationship has its own dynamics, but
absolutely,
to speak with or learn from other people who navigate those same experiences, it's like, okay, what it's like to be married to a man and love another man, and and that it changes everything. It changes everything, because I could look at, like, my straight grandparents, but they can't speak to the nuances that if I'm in a relationship with somebody, they can't speak to those smaller things or how to really work with those things. So it speaks to the importance of deeper perspectives on community in the LGBTQ plus community, and whomever we have, like you said, Mike, we're in a really interesting era of, we're not only kind of having elders, but then we'll eventually grow into those elders in the hopes of guiding generations coming up, but we're still figuring it out.
That's a lot of responsibility for us.
Becoming those elders. Don't look behind you, because time is There's more time behind us than there is ahead of us.
Oh,
That
you
is
good? Shoot, that's why I ain't show my grades yet. So
Get that,
Hey,
get
I
that-
know. I'm like, throughout this show progresses, I'm gonna keep dyeing the beard every once in a while and then go back.
that's a hero one, yeah. Okay, so we've got just a couple minutes left, and we've kept you longer than I meant to, Mark. But thank you so much for joining.
no, this was great. I was like,
Yeah,
shoot, we can
I'm
go another
enjoying
30
it.
minutes an hour. Like,
You're gonna have to come back for sure.
yes.
Where can people get this?
Oh man.
It's available to the masses.
So one day I hope that comes out October 6th. So on Tuesday, y'all, on Tuesday, and it's available in all major book retailers, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. If you can, please check out bookshop.org, because Bookshop, they whenever you purchase books from them, the money goes to small bookstores and mom and pop bookstore or bookshops. So I love supporting the smaller businesses. So if you can go to bookshop.org, you can check that out. My social is at Marq Mervin, MarqMervin. Basically my name. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. So definitely check out the book one day. I hope you enjoy it. And there's a little, if you want to learn more about me, near the back where you read the bio, you can check out this QR code. Make sure you have a QR code scanner on your phone. You can scan that and it'll take you to the website. So I have some goodies in there. So yeah, check it out on Tuesday.
We should, hey Mike, just throwing this out there because I mean this is all new, but can we put his link to his website right on the Facebook page?
Yep. Send me a clean link to your site, and I shared the book link wide, but send me a clean link to that specific site, and we will put it on our page.
One last question: are you going to have a book signing somewhere?
Well, in the current space we in, probably.
You know me.
You know, but
I live in here and think everything happens.
You're fine. Once we get some working vaccines after the beta test, absolutely.
You can have the book signing in the dining room or the the living room.
I'll leave it outside and y'all pick it up.
Okay. No, but I mean like a general book signing, and I just completely forgot about
That's actually a great question, but for your next book. And then we'll have you on again to talk about your LP, because I do want to do that.
Okay, cool. I'm down for it.